vetsonmedia.com for show details.
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets on Media Network.
All right, you are on The Arms Room with Glenn, and very sadly, John is gone, and Adam doesn't have a microphone today. So how awesome is that? Yeah, great. John is otherwise occupied today, and Adam is microphoneless. So he's got this really cool, like 1992 headset on though that I'm totally digging. Where's your Discman? Adam? No? All right. Because that looks like that kind of headset. All right. All right. On our show today, we have Frank Riggs. And Frank Riggs is a current candidate for the Arizona governor's seat. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing fine, Glenn. It's good to join you here. Is it on or in the Arms Room?
Both.
And you'll have to tell me off the air the reason that you have the silencer on Adam.
Yeah. So Frank, we kind of just want to get right into the topics today because I want to make sure we have lots of time with you. Certainly at Independence Training, we've been doing a lot, to try to promote you. And typically in the past, I don't get too heavily involved with politics. I kind of let the politicians do their thing, and I cast my vote at the appropriate time, But I haven't ever really stepped into getting involved with any kind of local candidates or anything. As I support them. Okay, that sounds great. Put a sign up in my window or something like that. With you, it's been a little bit different. We tried to get a little bit more involved, and it's been interesting because I've learned a lot about it. But we tried to get more involved, even in just helping to promote more. Because, quite frankly, I'm really just saddened and pissed. It's actually two emotions at what's going on in our country, and certainly some of the political threats that are aimed at our state. And so when I had first met you at one of the Firearm Business Alliance things that we had met at, it really kind of ignited a fire in me of like, I need to do something to try to spread the word about good people. So why don't you start off, Frank, by telling us a little bit about why you are running for governor?
Sure, and I appreciate this opportunity, Glenn, and I'm honored and grateful to have your personal support, given that you're obviously a very strong defender of the Second Amendment and the firearms industry and the shooting trade alliance, which are very important to Arizona. Maybe I shouldn't say this on the air, but you happen to have your oldest here in the studio, your son Garrett, who marched with us in Prescott on the 5th in their what is that called? Their Frontier Days rodeo parade. Kind of a mouthful. And I'm really running for governor, the highest elective office in our state, because I am really concerned about his future, the future of his generation. I'm a 3-term United States congressman from the 90s, and used to joke that I was a recovering politician because I've been working to promote parental school choice and to build and finance charter schools in Arizona and all across the country these last 14 years plus actually since leaving Congress. And yet, I'm back in the arena because I think the stakes are so great for our state and our country. And I know I have the deep leadership experience, the proven record to offer voters that I think hopefully will persuade voters that I'm ready to lead from day one, and I'm ready to make the tough decisions that have to be made to turn our state and our country around, without really, regard for the political consequences. I'm willing to call them as I see them, let the chips fall where they may. I'm sort of mixing my metaphors here. But I think we need that kind of bold, courageous leadership at the helm. And I surveyed the rest of the field, good people, but no one with my deep, proven leadership experience. And that's why I've been able to say, as I've traveled all over the state, steadily building support and momentum, that in what appears to be a crowded field, there is a clear, proven, consistent conservative choice for the Republican nomination for governor.
Well, and there's a couple of interesting things here in your background that I know a lot of the other candidates lack, and I want to talk about these two very particular, well, really three very particular things, but two of them especially, because I know a lot of our listeners, as we were talking about before the show, you know, a lot of our listeners are veterans, a lot of them are law enforcement, a lot of them have been involved in those kind of, you know, professions. At some point in their life.
Service to country, service to community.
Some kind of service. And so they look at it and they say, I want to get involved, but it's too scary. There's too much to do to become a representative, a local councilman, a governor, whatever. And so you're a veteran, U.S. Army veteran.
Proud Army veteran, yes.
You are prior law enforcement.
Prior law enforcement.
And not scary law enforcement, because that's a question I get a lot, is like, well, was he like a door-kicking baby killer? Like, no, definitely
Local
not.
Law enforcement. I was a, to kind of just go through my background a little bit, right out of high school, I was a police cadet, decided to work full-time and go to college part-time. So when I enlisted in the Army, when I got a low draft lottery number and decided to proactively
do the smart thing.
Yes, to do the smart thing, and found myself one really early morning at the Oakland Army Induction Center in Oakland, California, and they asked me what my prior work experience was. I said, well, I was a police cadet, and they said, okay, great. Well, that sounds like 95 Bravo, military police. So I went into I went through basic training at Fort Ord, California, went through MP school, advanced infantry training and MP school at Fort Gordon, Georgia. Became, over the course of my almost 3 years in the United States Army, a military policeman, military police investigator, and ultimately a military police supervisor. And out of the Army, went back to college on the GI Bill and became a police officer. Police officer first in Santa Barbara, California, later became a deputy sheriff in Sonoma County, California, Northern California, where I hail from. And I was local law enforcement, and as you and I have discussed, I learned, I think really in the first day or first week at the police academy, they kind of drilled into your best weapon is your mouth. It's your ability to control and command a situation through basically your verbal orders, and it's a way of obviously de-escalating most situations as well. And I don't, I'm incredibly concerned about the federal government overreach, the intrusion into the legitimate affairs of Arizona state government, this infringement upon our state sovereignty, and I won't put up with these heavily, armed, militarized federal agencies. I'm not going to call them police or law enforcement agencies because I don't think they have a legitimate constitutional law enforcement mission like BLM and other agencies, but I won't allow that in Arizona, in part because, again, when I worked in law enforcement, I also learned that, and this was standard protocol, that federal law enforcement agencies, FBI, DEA, that have legitimate constitutional law enforcement missions, they always would coordinate with local law enforcement on any of their activities, anything having to do with search and seizure, anything having to do with arrest, and typically local law enforcement would take the lead, because they have a better understanding of the community. Many times they know the individuals involved and can effectively carry out an arrest warrant or a search and seizure warrant with the least possibility or minimal chance of that escalating into some sort of deadly or violent situation.
So it's a real protect and serve concept.
It is.
I mean, that's the kind of policing that you come from, is the real protect and serve concept.
And absolutely. And again, as a local law enforcement officer, as a police officer and deputy sheriff, as I was for several years, and of course as my wife Kathy was, because that's how we met. We were both police officers. You learn that force, any type of force, is an absolute last resort. So the mission is very much protect and serve. It's community-based policing, and that's what I learned, and that's really how I served all those years when I was in local law enforcement.
So you got out, you got off of law enforcement, you went and became a congressman.
Well, there's a little gap of time in there.
There's a gap in there,
Yes.
but I want to hit the major stuff.
Sure.
Right. So you went and became a congressman, and that's something that kind of throws people too. I know when I'm talking to them about about your candidacy, they're like, oh, he's a congressman, like he's one of those, like he's the enemy, Yeah. And
that's a sad commentary on the state of affairs in our country.
It really is. It really
understand
is. And so people look at that and they're like, oh man, I don't know if that's really what we want. But then during your time in Congress, you had a voting record that was very pro what we want. Tell me more about that.
Absolutely. Well, I got involved in Republican Party politics through becoming acquainted with Ronald Reagan. I met him at the White House in 1982. I was one of a group of young Republican leaders that was invited back there. And my wife and I attended his second inauguration in 1984. And he encouraged me to get actively involved in politics and consider running for elective office, which I did in 1990 in Northern California, the 1st Congressional District of California, where I ultimately defeated a 4-term, 8-year Democrat incumbent in a congressional district where Democrats had almost a 20-point registration advantage. But I ran on a slogan of send a tough cop to Congress. The incumbent had been tainted by the savings and loan scandal, so it turned out he had received preferential treatment in the form of sweetheart loans from 2 failed savings and loans that cost taxpayers millions of dollars, and got back to Washington, D.C., saw corruption in Congress firsthand, the House Bank and Post Office scandals, organized the Gang of Seven, so myself and 6 other Republican freshmen in the minority party in the House, the lowest form of life in Washington, D.C., but we went on to expose those scandals, and I went on, I believe, to serve 2 more terms in Congress, the highest legislative body in our land, with distinction as a reformer and a leader of Congress. And during my 3 terms, 6 years of service in Congress, before leaving to keep my term limits commitment, we balanced the federal budget. The federal budget was balanced in 1998, the year I left office after my last votes to impeach Bill Clinton. We fundamentally reformed welfare by imposing time limits and work requirements on welfare recipients. We cut taxes for the first time in a generation. I received the Taxpayer Heroes Award from Citizens Against Government Waste and Watchdogs of the Treasury for consistently voting to cut federal government spending and reduce the size, the scope, the cost, the reach of the federal government. And I'm probably most proud of the fact that I received the highest ratings in the endorsements of the NRA and National Right to Life for my voting record. So that's, again, why I say, Glenn, that in a crowded field, there's a clear, proven, consistent conservative choice, and that's on the basis of my record. As it turns out, I'm running against several people in the field, the so-called wealthy or establishment candidates, who've either never held any elective office at any level of government or have never held legislative office, but in both cases have never had to cast a single tough vote. And as I said a moment ago, my very first votes as a member of Congress were on the first Persian Gulf War resolutions, and my very last votes as a member of Congress were on the articles of impeachment against Bill Clinton.
And I think that's really a very incredibly important thing to focus on is your service record and your actual real life voting record. And I want to hit 2 points on that. The first point is that if you are a service member of any kind, military, law enforcement, whatever, even just even if you're just a citizen who has a very strong desire to serve, get involved in politics. Maybe, I mean, that's the path you took, where you came from a life of service, and then you went into being involved with the Young Republicans and ended up, long story short, becoming a congressman, just simply because of your desire to serve. You weren't a silver spoon politician.
No.
You weren't my daddy was a politician, so I'm going to be a politician. You had a desire to serve the people. And so if you are out there listening and you have a desire to serve the people, it's possible for you to get to this point.
There's no question. Teddy Roosevelt was the one that says all credit goes to the man, and nowadays we'd say the man or woman willing to get into the arena and kind of get a little dusty or bloody in the process. And I probably still have the scars to show for the political battles I fought as a member of Congress. But, the passivity, sitting on the sidelines, apathy. There's a saying that in our representative democracy, there's a fine line between healthy skepticism and corrosive cynicism. And someone that chooses to sit it out, but just complain, is, I think, in the latter category. Someone who is cynical, and that corrosive cynicism eats at the heart, again, of our representative democracy, which relies on citizen participation. Citizen participation at a minimum, voting in each election, performing your citizenly duty, your civic duty, but participation in many other forms, including running for office or helping someone whose views you support or philosophy you support run for elective office. And I always tell people, for better or for worse, politics drives policy. So you have to win the election, hopefully in a very principled manner, before you have the opportunity to govern and really make positive change. And again, that's a big reason why I personally am back in the arena and perhaps not enjoying a little bit more time with my grandkids.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole reason you got involved really in the governor race was your wife kind of told you to put up or shut up, right? I mean, that was
in so many words. Yeah.
I mean, that was...
Now, I haven't met your wife, but I have a feeling our wives are pretty similar. But yes, she said, I kind of joke, but that she said, stop complaining, and talking back to the TV and get involved. But we had a very serious conversation, Glenn, over the holidays. Our son, Matt, our middle child, who and his beautiful wife, Erin, informed us over the holidays, really gave us the best possible present with the news that they were pregnant and expecting a child actually a little bit later this month, what will be their firstborn, but our third grandchild.
Awesome.
And that news, and thank you, and that news really hit home, literally and figuratively, over the holidays. And Kathy and I looked at it and sort of took stock of the situation and said, it's really now or never. We've been, as a couple, uniquely blessed, beginning with our beautiful children and their significant others, our expanded brood, our grandchildren. But I'm in a position to be able to make this kind of contribution by getting back into the arena. And I know I've got the background, the preparation, the skills necessary to lead from the front and govern on day one, and to do the essential things that absolutely have to be done to turn our state around. That's why I say that I'll use the executive authority of the governor's office to repeal Common Core on day one. We do not need the further federalization of K-12 education and the nationalization of the standards and assessments or tests that dictate curriculum and how we'll teach our kids.
And we see them fail anyways.
So, yes.
We know that, more failed policy or more policy based on failed policy is never a good policy.
So here you have a top-down, one-size-fits-all federal mandate imposed on state government, and by state government in turn on local school districts and charter schools, which are supposed to be autonomous, with a ripple effect, even affecting homeschooling families.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Coming from that world, I can absolutely agree with that.
So because of my background in K-12 education, I just said I'll stop it on day one, and I'll restore local control and parental school choice in K-12 education. I've also said I'll work with the conservative Republican majority in the state legislature to roll back the unsustainable expansion of Medicaid under Obamacare. And I'm the only candidate that has said that I will do both. I'll repeal Common Core. I'll roll back the Medicaid expansion under Obamacare, which, by the way, also takes $1 trillion out of Medicare over the next decade to pay for Obamacare subsidies, including the expansion of Medicaid here in Arizona.
Now, a lot of what you're talking about kind of brings me to our next point, which is why it's so important to do homework on your candidates, because there's so many candidates out there for dozens of different offices. In fact, just my son and I are driving down here today, and of course there's 100 political signs along the side of the road, and he says to me, I didn't know that there was so many offices. I thought it was just like one or two people, and it's like, no, there's so many, and it's sometimes it's hard to keep track of. Even as an adult who's going to be voting, it's hard to keep track of everybody. And so when I find those people, sometimes you latch onto something, and someone will latch onto something like, hey, he's a vet, or he's a former cop, or or she's this, or he's that, or whatever. And while those things are important, like to us, right, it's important that you have a service record. That's important to us. But that's not everything, right? Because we've seen plenty of candidates with service records, like a current senator of ours who has a great service record and has not helped us at all. But so a service record isn't always enough. That's not, and so why it's so important for people to do their background history, because as we were talking about, and as so many people have talked about, all the different candidates that are out there, especially for governor, I mean, the highest position right now that you can get in Arizona, there are some candidates out there who are exaggerating, they're embellishing, flat out lying, and they're not being caught on some of it, because people aren't doing their homework. They're taking politicians at face value. And I think if history shows us absolutely nothing at all other than you shouldn't take politicians at face value, because there's so many people out there who say a lot and they end up when they get into office, they don't do it. I mean, look at our president.
Yeah, absolutely.
He ran on an entire concept that people bought into. Mm-hmm. And didn't work out for them. And that's why it's so important to do their homework. And that's why, as you're talking about all this, I encourage people, go check out Frank Riggs. I mean, I'm fully supportive of him and his concepts. Let's talk real quick before we go on break. I want to talk about how people can go find out. So as they're listening to the show, maybe they can go check out your website. So give me the website.
I hope they will. It's www.riggs, RIGGS 4azgov.com. We've got a wealth of information there.
There's tons of info on there.
Yep.
There's also information on there, on Facebook. Facebook, same thing. Riggs 4azgov.
The number 4.
The number 4.
4azgov.
Yes, the number 4. So Riggs number 4azgov. You can look it up on Facebook. If you go to our Arms Room Facebook page, there's a link on there. For the post that says we're live, so our today's live post has links to both of those. Other things that are going to be popping up. Before we go on break, I got to tell everyone about this because they're going to be popping up in the next couple minutes here. There are going to be 2 photos popping up of our Arms Room with Frank. All right, I didn't tell him I was going to put these photos up. The first photo is there's an awesome picture of Frank. The second time I met him, he brought him, his wife, a couple members of his family, and
my crew.
Yeah, your crew, your crew, all right, some campaign people. It was awesome. They came to the ASRPA, the Arizona State Rifle and Pistol Association event. Frank carried his own gun with his own ammunition to the event and shot through we had a combat action pistol stage there for the ASRPA day, and shot through it, and then your wife shot through it, and your whole crew shot through it, and a couple times. And then you used a couple
we had an excellent
different
instructor.
firearms, and it was awesome. It was a blast.
Well,
and
we had a great instructor, and just so our listeners know, that happened to be Glenn in independence training. Fabulous. A true professional in every respect. And my crew, by the way, included my daughter Sarah Ann and her husband TJ Thomas James, and they've never fired a firearm.
Well, they did great
in their lives, and they had an absolute blast doing it. And of course, aren't you going to say what the relic was that I brought with me?
So he had his old service revolver with him.
I did.
That's old 38 Special Reserve.
Smith & Wesson, Model 39, right? Military and police.
But you rocked it, man.
Special.
You did a great job.
Well,
with that.
Then you put me on the it was a Colt, right? Colt semi-automatic.
Yeah, we had a 1911. Yeah, we brought
which is
out,
of course what I carried in
your
the
Army service pistol. Yeah.
So it was a great day. All the way around.
And the second picture is going to pop up. Another good photo of Frank really putting his money where his mouth is and spending time in the firearms industry, spending time truly supporting the Second Amendment and really showing that that he really does own firearms, that he really does do this, he really does shoot, he really does appreciate and protect our Second Amendment rights and the huge firearm businesses that we have here in Arizona. The second picture that'll pop up, I think, here in another 10 or 15 minutes is last Monday. Well, I was here at the show, I might add. All right, Frank was rocking a Dillon Arrow minigun, and it's an awesome picture of just brass pouring out. And the thing I want you to pay attention to the most is the look on Frank's face, because some people when they shoot the minigun, it's just like this gleeful look. Frank looks like business as usual, which just really gives you a good idea of his mentality on his whole. His whole candidacy for governor, that he really is serious about this and about this job. We got to go on break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how the average person can get involved in realistically taking back freedom in our country. We'll also talk a little bit more about your experience and a little bit more about kind of the race for governor here in Arizona and what our national listeners who aren't in Arizona, what they can do to enforce freedom and to help further the cause of freedom in their states. We're going to go on break. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Arms Room.
How about that bandage? You got some ears on, son?
Have you ever wanted to be a truck driver? If so, pay attention. If not, pay attention anyway. Southwest Truck Driver Training offers everything you need to get started. You can get hired before you begin training. They've got GI Bill approved training facilities, day, night, or weekend programs to fit your busy schedule. And if you have any questions, no sweat. They've got veteran supportive campuses with veterans on staff to serve you. And on top of that, They have lifetime job placement assistance. Put the pedal to the metal. Call Southwest Truck Driver Training today.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Are you or someone you know suffering from eczema, diabetes, or vitamin deficiencies? Then I can share with you something to help remedy that with health and wellness. It can be a business plan too, which is a great opportunity to meet and interact with all types of people who care about changing lives. So when you are ready to make a difference, call Jamie at 602-295-9969. That's 602-295-9969.
Hey everyone, it's Adam from Vets On. Are you or someone you know looking for employment? Then look no further than iVetX. iVetX is placing veterans with the right hiring companies. Join their mission in putting veterans in inspiring careers with ensured success. Access their national pipeline of military talent for companies. All veterans are pre-screened for 55 soft skill sets, 800 clarification types, education, experience, salary range, and so much more. iVetX can help you find the perfect job to veteran match. Your skills are based on what's needed for success in that job. If you're a hiring company or a veteran looking for your next career, then get started today and go to www.ivetx.com. iVetX, bridging the employer-veteran gap by putting Americans' veterans to work today.
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets On Media Network.
All right, you're back on the Arms Room. Today we have Frank Riggs, who is an Arizona candidate for governor. But we're not just talking about Arizona today. We love Arizona, and we're based in Arizona, so of course we're going to talk about Arizona. But that's not just what we're talking about. We're talking about things from a national level. Now, if you want to call in, if you have questions for Frank, call in. Our number is 602-399-7787. And you can also post on the We're Live post of our Facebook page if you have any questions, and we will get them answered on the air. So, Frank, when we left, before we went on the break, we were talking about why it's important for people to do their homework, because there's so much embellishing and exaggerating and sometimes just flat-out lying that goes on out there. How does an average citizen go about doing homework on a candidate?
Well, there is a lot of information out there, but and you're certainly right, Glenn, that in this particular race, the contest for the Republican gubernatorial nomination, that there are candidates that either have no record or very, how should I put it, thin records, limited experience, and I welcome the contrast with my deep, proven experience, but it's all out there. The good starting point, of course, are the candidates' websites, but then, I mean, the biggest difference over the last decade in American politics has been the fragmentation of the media. And there are so many different blogs or sources of information that for the discerning voter who really wants to do their homework, you can do a considerable amount of internet-based research and gather a lot of information on the candidates and really, I think, come to an independent but informed decision on the candidate's qualifications and preparations for A, to lead and serve, and secondly, to hopefully promote and protect the cause of freedom and the fundamental values that I know we share of fiscal responsibility. These are the values that drive me and that I say I'll protect and preserve as governor of Arizona. But fiscal responsibility, constitutionally limited government, free markets because free markets work, equal opportunity but not equal outcome, secure borders, and personal responsibility. So there is a lot of information out there. And I guess the other thing I want our listeners to know is I take promises and commitments very seriously, especially in the political arena, because as I said earlier in the first segment, there's so much cynicism about politics and politicians today in our country, and that's corrosive. It's dangerous to our participatory democracy. But I take my promises and commitments very seriously. I put them on a par with the oath that I took when I was sworn into the United States Army, and the same oath that I took as a United States Congressman when I was sworn in then to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I also took the law enforcement oath of honor when I became a police officer. So my promises and commitments are solemn. They are an extension of the oaths that I've taken in my life, and I fully expect the people, the voters of Arizona, to hold me to them. And I will hold myself accountable to the people and the voters of Arizona, my constituents, my bosses, if you will. Because A, I believe in servant leadership. I know I'm accountable to them. And B, I'll be a visible, accessible, inclusive governor, and I'll get to every part of the state.
Well, you brought up something that's really important, and that is the whole oath concept. For veterans, that oath that you take doesn't stop when you get discharged.
That's right.
Regardless of your type of discharge, it doesn't ever stop. That oath is an important oath. I review that oath frequently myself to make sure that I'm still maintaining it, because it is incredibly important to me. And I think for a lot of veterans out there, it's also incredibly important to them. It's the kind of thing where we have entire organizations like the Oath Keepers who are specifically based around the idea of keeping that oath. And when you take that oath, and when you take the oath of law enforcement, and when you take the oath of being a congressman, those are all things that, while not everyone who takes that oath takes it as seriously, I would say a majority of people do. Mm-hmm. And for those of us who are, on the outside of things now, so to speak, we take those oaths incredibly seriously. And when you look at candidates, in my opinion, this is part of what always draws me to candidates who have some type of military or law enforcement or public service background, is because at some point they took an oath. They really put themselves out there and really promised to do something to protect and preserve liberty, to uphold the Constitution. And so when you're looking at candidates who have never had to raise that right hand and honestly take a serious oath, it definitely says something about, are they really ready for the job?
I completely agree, and particularly the highest elective office in our state.
The highest elective office in the state of Arizona.
I'm running against a couple, again, sort of wealthy establishment type of candidates, one of whom apparently thinks she should start at the top, another of whom has a very limited record and has never held legislative office or had to, like I said earlier, had to cast a single vote. But Glenn, that oath is the public trust. Mm-hmm. And there is no higher responsibility when you hold the public trust than to protect it, to burnish it, to make it better for the next person that holds that office. It's one reason why to this day I don't like people to call me congressman, because that has an honorific title. It ran with the office. I think I served the office, served my district, my constituents, my country well, but I served 3 terms, 6 years, and then left to keep my term limits commitment, because I think elective office should be short-term public service, not a career. And I don't like people to call me by that title.
Where's your sound effects, Adam? Damn it. Give me an applause for that one. Give me some applause for that.
But I really don't, so, and I'm always cognizant, and again, I'm a flawed human being. I make mistakes, but I think, again, I'm well prepared for this job and the responsibilities. We have huge challenges as a state, not least of which is our own version of a fiscal cliff that looms, and that the next governor and his administration will have to address immediately, just to put our state government on sound financial footing. Until we do that, we really can't address some of the other challenges that we have as a state. But I take that responsibility very, very seriously. I think my background, my experience aligns with the responsibilities of governor, beginning first and foremost with public safety. And that's why I've said I'm proud that I'm the only candidate who's a military veteran, but it helps that my military service was in military law enforcement, then followed by civilian law enforcement, because the highest responsibility of state government, of course, is public safety, and that also means helping to the state's role in helping to secure our border and combat illegal immigration and border crime. So I'm very well prepared for that job, and will, like I've said many times, will lead from the front, including as Commander-in-Chief of the Arizona National Guard. But I also have a very extensive background in public education. So, and I'm well prepared for that responsibility in terms of how do we improve the quality of public education in Arizona while protecting parental school choice, charter school autonomy, and homeschooling. So again, my background prepares me for the responsibilities and challenges ahead. But in taking on those responsibilities and challenges, I'll always be cognizant that I will be serving under the oath that I've given the people of Arizona, yet another oath in my life, basically of taking oaths to serve my country, to serve my community, to give back, because this is a way that I think the good Lord has blessed me and prepared me to give back, and is a calling of sorts for me. But again, I'm very cognizant that's a public trust, and when I leave, I have to leave the office. I have to protect that public trust, and I have to leave the office better than I inherited it.
Well, and I think that everything you just talked about on a national level, for our listeners who aren't in Arizona, and they're in their respective states, looking at their own governor races or looking at their own races for whatever public offices they may happen to be vote on. One thing that you said there really stood out to me, and that was, my life has prepared me for this seat as governor. When you look at, as you mentioned, some of the candidates that you're going against, they have no experience. Now, I remember about what's been 6 years now, that on a national level, some people elected someone who wasn't prepared for that chair, who wasn't prepared to be, president of the United States, whose lifestyle had never, ever put him in a position where he had to take an oath, where he had to work hard, where he had to earn what he got, where he had to really put himself out there and really do what he said he was going to do. He had this entire lifestyle where there was a lot of silver spooning and there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on, very similar to some of the candidates I know you're running against. There is no real world experience there, and look how well that's gone for our country in the last 6 years.
It's just you're so right, Glenn, and I mean it's actually kind of frightening, with the benefit of 6 years of hindsight, to look back on that and think this was the man that a majority of Americans, or at least a majority of the American electorate, thought was prepared to be president, the commander-in-chief, and leader of the free world. It's unfathomable to me. I mean, obviously, I didn't support him, and I think he brought a real ideology. An ideology that is at odds with the concept of American exceptionalism to that office, and has done many, many things that have been very harmful to our country and to our state. So that's why I say I'm going to stop the Obamanization of Arizona by repealing Common Core, working with the conservative Republican majority in the state legislature to roll back Medicaid expansion, and protecting our public lands in Arizona. I think it'd be a good thing for Arizona's next governor to have successful experience serving as a United States congressman, because 40% of our state budget is federal aid, and 28 million acres of our land, Arizona land, is under federal government dominion and control. But I want to make our state less, not more dependent on the federal government. But saying that, I certainly will know my way around Washington, D.C. I'll have a lot of credibility, I think, and respect with the Arizona congressional delegation, other members of Congress as well who know me from my service, and know that I'll be an effective advocate for Arizona with respect to the federal-state relationship that has such a huge impact on the lives and the economy of Arizona.
And it's just another way that people need to do their homework. You know, it's kind of what we've been talking about is what are some of the things that you're looking for? You know, you've touched on plenty of things that people need to be looking for in their candidates. And that's just another thing that people need to be looking for and really focusing. Forget the platform that they're running on. Forget the money that they may have or the businesses they may run or anything like that. Has their life been service-oriented?
Yeah.
Because that is what the Arizona governor is, as a service-based position. So is their life service-oriented, and has their life sufficiently prepared them? I mean, it'd be like a guy enlisting in the military, and he does a really fantastic job. He rises up to the rank of, let's say, E6. He does an awesome job at commanding his platoon. He's just doing a fantastic job at doing it. He's like the best sergeant anyone ever had. And then they make him colonel.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just like, whoa, we skipped a whole bunch just because he did really good at this other job.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean, has his lifestyle, has his experience, has his service prepared him for that elevated position? And I think that's really where people have to do their homework and looking at the candidates is forget all the fancy stuff. How well they run, how cool their signs are, their fancy TV ads or whatever they have. Forget all that stuff and get through the campaign nonsense.
Right.
And really look at the candidate and say, has this person's life been service-oriented, and has it prepared them for the position that I'm trying to vote them into?
It is so true. You know, I said, and I don't know if Adam recalls this, but I actually said, because Vets on Media covered the Veterans Forum that we had at the Phoenix Central Library, and I said, you know, I'm very proud that I stepped forward to serve my country. And I was actually in the Army when we went from a combination of draftee volunteer to all volunteer. And I pointed out that I was, the only one that had stepped forward to serve, voluntarily serve on active duty in the military. Now, the other candidates decided to do something else with their lives. But to your point, Glenn, I actually have a higher standard that I use. And it's one that you and Adam will appreciate very much. And it's a pretty simple standard, and that is, would I want this individual in a foxhole with me? Or would I want them in the patrol car with me? Would they, if because I've been in those life and death situations, not been knocked down, and there've been some really tough situations as you might imagine you encounter, especially as a police officer working on the streets. And again, my kind of measure of the person is, would they have my back? Could I rely on them? If I really needed help, and that's a standard that are measure that I continue to use. I can take one look at Barack Obama. I did many years ago, and took his measure and knew, no, this is an individual, a narcissistic individual who is about himself first and foremost and promoting a far left-wing ideology, and he's not the kind of person that would ever volunteer to serve in a foxhole or be my partner in the patrol car. So the hypothetical question's moot, but it's still something I apply, and it's something I apply in this race as well with respect to the other candidates who are my opponents.
That is an awesome point that I think we're gonna leave on for our next break. Maybe that's a great standard, man. That's how I'm gonna start voting. Is the person I'm voting for the kind of person that I would want to go to war with?
I want Glenn Stilson with me, because I know he'd have my back.
I just shoot well. That's the issue.
That too.
All right, so let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to finish up the show talking about why it's critical that people on a national basis, and especially here locally in Arizona, get involved. Enough of this boo-hoo, my voting doesn't make a difference nonsense. You have to get off the sidelines and get involved. When we come back, we're going to be talking about that. You are listening to The Arms Room.
Are you or someone you know looking for a new job or career? The Vets on Media family would like to invite you to the National Career Fair in Phoenix on July 28th from 11 until 2 p.m. This free job fair will be held at the Phoenix Airport Marriott Hotel, located at 1101 North 44th Street, Phoenix. This is your chance to meet some of the top employers in the Phoenix area face-to-face. Get ready to jumpstart your new career at the National Career Festival in Phoenix, July 28th from 11 until 2 p.m. at the Phoenix Airport Marriott Hotel, 1101 North 44th Street, Phoenix. For more information, visit ncfairs.com/Phoenix. Again, that's ncfairs.com/Phoenix.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
Would your goal be to get you and your family out of debt? I can show you how thousands of people and families are doing just that. This is a business plan made simple. We offer everything from weight loss products to green cleaning solutions. Whether you're interested in making it a full-time or part-time opportunity to become debt-free, or if you are just sick and tired of being sick and tired, call Jamie at 602-295-9969. That's 602-295-9969.
Breaker, 19. How about that bandit? You got some ears on, son?
Have you ever wanted to be a truck driver? If so, pay attention. If not, pay attention anyway. Southwest Truck Driver Training offers everything you need to get started. You can get hired before you begin training. They've got GI Bill approved training facilities, day, night, or weekend programs to fit your busy schedule. And if you have any questions, no sweat. They've got veteran supportive campuses with veterans on staff to serve you. And on top of that, they have lifetime job placement assistance. Put the pedal to the metal. Call Southwest Truck Driver Training today.
Do you need an extra push to start your day? Well, then tune in to Addie's Radio. Addie's Radio is a show that explores tough questions in an open and fun forum. The program also engages hard-hitting issues concerning veterans' physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. This show airs every Tuesday from 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Vets On Media Network. Addie's Radio is hosted by Jesse James, a combat veteran of Afghanistan, so he knows the problems that veterans face every day. Jesse provides you guidance each and every week to be a better you. So tune into yourself each week by tuning into Addie's Radio. Go to vetsonmedia.com for show details.
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets On Media Network.
All right, you're back on The Arms Room. We have Frank Riggs, Arizona candidate for governor, working man, Army veteran, former law enforcement, a very experienced congressman, and not the bad kind, the good kind of congressman. Proven voting record that is pro-Second Amendment and pro-small business and pro-educational reform, good educational reform. I mean, I don't think there's anything I typically, I'll find a candidate I like, and then I like him, but I don't really agree with his policy on that or whatever. I don't think that you have a policy, Frank, and this is very abnormal for me to say about any what I would consider a politician, whatever. I don't really consider you a politician, but someone running for a political office. I don't think you have a policy that I don't agree with. I mean, you've got the proven record of service to people, to your nation, to your community, to our entire region. You have that proven service record. You've taken those oaths. You've taken them seriously. You've taken at least three incredibly serious oaths.
That's right.
And one thing I want to point out to listeners too is that it's not just Frank who's done this. Your wife, as you mentioned earlier, also former law enforcement. That's where you guys met, was in law enforcement.
That's right.
So, also you're not the only person in this arena. Sometimes people go, oh well, it's just a candidate. Look at their family too, man. We were kind of talking about our president earlier. Look at his wife. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, you know what I mean? Just nuts, right? look at your wife. She's fantastic. So,
Thank you, Glenn.
so when
She is.
she's awesome. I mean, the interaction I've had with her has just been nothing but absolute positive.
I wouldn't be sitting here across from you in the studio today, but for, Kathy Millard, now Kathy Riggs, my wife of 34 years.
34 years.
34 years.
Wow, that's older than you, Adam.
And the incredible blessings, our children. It's just been incredible. But you're right. That's how we met. A mutual friend, her sergeant, introduced us, and I reneged on my commitment that I would never date a female police officer. But in the spirit of full disclosure, she had seniority. And she made detective.
And she had rank on you.
She did.
Ouch.
She did. But somehow we made it work. We look back on it now. In my first term in Congress, Kathy went to law school, and our kids were young. I mean, we had to be off the stress scale. We just didn't know better.
Well, and that's what's awesome is that, again, looking at the family members of the candidates, because they're going to be involved. They're going to be in the public eye. We've seen it before. In fact, there's candidates right now in the governor race alongside you who have had some interesting family issues in the past and who continue to have interesting family issues. And if you as a voter don't think that that's going to affect the candidate, you're wrong. Again, I look at you and say, you've been married for 34 years. You've got kids. They're all great kids. I've met one of them, fantastic gal, great husband, good people. These are the kind of people that are going to be backing up a governor. That's awesome. So when people are out there, and that's kind of what I want to finish up the show talking about, is why is it so important for people to get off the couch? Because they have candidates like you. In almost every state, there's got to be a candidate that's somewhat like him. I don't think there's a second Frank Riggs. I don't know if that's possible, but there's a candidate that's like you, who has a proven service record, who has a great family, who understands business, who understands what it's really going to take to be a great elected leader. We've talked about how people can find those people. Now they got to get off the couch and they got to get out there, and they've got to help them campaign. They've got to endorse them. They've got to promote them. They've got to talk about them on Facebook and email. They've got to tell their friends about them. They've got to get off the couch. And most importantly, when it comes down to it, they have to vote. And people think that their votes don't matter because in recent years there's been, we were talking on a break about conspiracy theories about voting and, oh my gosh, are votes rigged and all that. You know what? You've got to get out and vote.
People absolutely have to, especially in this race for the Republican gubernatorial nomination, because it's a multi-candidate field and a small number of votes may decide the outcome. I mean, the likely nominee is going to win with a plurality, not a majority. So it's crucial that everybody vote, especially those that are attracted to my candidacy and want to support me and think that I would be the best nominee in the general election. Because it goes to your point, Glenn, in that there's a reason that they call themselves progressives, because they want to progressively grow government, more government, more taxes, leading to expanding the entitlement society, more dependency on government, all at the loss of personal responsibility, self-reliance, and the individual freedoms that we cherish here a couple of days after the 238th birthday of our country. And make no mistake about it, here in Arizona, the Democrats have cleared the field for the presumptive nominee, Mr. Deval, who's waiting for the general election. He's a true blue, pardon the pun, Clintonite, and that whole organization. Hillary is an extension of Barack Obama's policies. They're hoping that they can turn our state purple this November and then turn it blue for Hillary in 2016. And if that were to happen, that'd be extremely harmful.
I would move.
Well,
I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
I kid you not that I would move. I love Arizona. I've spent the majority of my life here. I was not born here, but I've spent the majority of my life here.
Well, we're at a crossroads.
And I would move.
We're at a crossroads. So I'm really delighted that I continue to build momentum and support. Just today, we announced that I received the endorsement of former State President, State Senator Russell Pierce, the author of Senate Bill 1070, for which he's best known, but actually his extraordinary background and a career as a dedicated public service. Our listeners may not know that Russell was the chief deputy to Sheriff Joe Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. He helped Sheriff Joe implement a lot of those reforms and those policies for which Sheriff Joe and the department are now well known. Was the director of the Arizona Department of Motor Vehicles under Governor Fife Symington. Totally reinvented that state agency to make it customer friendly. It has just done incredible things. Was chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, but again, is probably best known for insisting on the enforcement of the law, the protection of the public safety as the primary responsibility of state government, and securing our border. So I couldn't be more delighted, more pleased, more humbled to have Russell Pierce's endorsement today. We're really excited. It's going to be a big shot in the armed force for us. It follows on the heels of the other endorsements that I've received, including my good friend, advisor, Thayer Verschoor, who's also served with Russell in the state Senate and is the former state Senate majority leader. So I'm really, and the reason that they're rallying to my candidacy, I think, is because they recognize the stakes are so high for our state and for our country, and they want to support the candidate who has the most experience, the best preparation, and will certainly make the best Republican nominee in the general election against Fred Deval come November.
And people say, oh, well, Arizona, that wouldn't happen here. Oh, well, that's what Colorado said.
That's right.
And look what's happening in Colorado. That's what, a lot of those states up in the Northeast said.
Yeah.
Oh, it can't get any worse than this.
It's so funny.
And then they pass more regulations and they pass more stupid restrictions. And the government gets bigger and bigger. You mentioned big government. It's because a lot of these people, especially when you're looking at candidates who are used to big business and big incomes and job security, so to speak, what do they really want in business? Or excuse me, in government? They want big business, which is big government.
That's right.
In their government positions, because that's job security. That's why more politicians, as you mentioned earlier, we don't want career politicians. That's why career politicians want to continually, get more terms. They want bigger governments. They want more agencies. They want to be able to leave their elected position and go into one of these other government agencies as, chairman or deputy or chief or whatever, because that is a job security thing for them. So they want the government to grow. And so when you look at some of the other candidates, not just against you in Arizona, which is certainly true for some of the candidates, but also in other states, again, for our listeners who are in other states, look at these candidates. The candidates who come from big business backgrounds, with big incomes, with deep pockets and lots of money. Do you think they're just going to freaking change their mind when they get elected? You think their lifestyle is just going to magically change?
Yeah, they're faux conservatives.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is that they oppose special interest, except when those special interests
especially interesting to them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you get this corporate cronyism, and I've said I'll take on the special interest groups that want to expand Arizona government and cause basically want more spending, more taxes for their special interest, for their reasons. So it'll be no more status quo, and I'll take on those special interests. I'll end corporate welfare in Arizona. I won't permit government to create a policy that favors one business or industry over another. The role of government, obviously, is to help create a fair, level playing field and then get out of the way. And we won't let Arizona go the way of Colorado, because as you and I both know, because we visited together, we visited the Ruger factory, 250,000 square feet under roof in Prescott, and had a nice visit, nice tour with Mark Lang, the regional vice president there, real efficiency, logistics expert.
Incredible, the efficiency with which the Ruger factory
unbelievable.
Runs. I was amazed at the efficiency of that factory.
But what did he tell us towards the end? He says that Ruger, doing so well, right? I guess that's one of the few positives maybe that's come out of the Obama administration, right? But doing so well, they needed to expand. But where did they go? As you and I both learned, they go to North Carolina. They invest $10 million there. They create
$10 million, 500
new jobs. Good jobs.
Yeah.
And why didn't they stay here? Deep roots in Arizona, the whole legacy going all the way back to Bill Ruger. Well, as you and I learned, we didn't even make the first cut at corporate because we have a medical marijuana law. They know, as Colorado went, medical marijuana leads to recreational marijuana. So what did Mark tell us? The other thing Mark told us is just stunning, is that he finally got permission from corporate to implement random drug testing, random urinalysis, told the employees it was coming, Finally, they did it, selected a group of 30 employees. 5 quit on the spot, right? And 1 tested positive. That's 6 out of 30, 1/5 of the employees. And if that's a representative sampling of their total workforce there, that could not pass.
And not only is that a problem for them as a factory, it's a problem for them as an ATF-controlled organization.
Exactly.
Because there are certain things based on federal regulation that they cannot have in their workforce. Now, and that's an interesting topic, and I wish we had a 2-hour show. We could keep going and talking more about this. I do want to mention, however, Frank, you are going to be on with Adam and James on sometime this month. All right, so sometime this month on the Vets on Radio, which is Adam and James's show, a great show, and it is a 2-hour block. And they talk. They usually have a couple guests and several topics and everything. You are going to be on their show at some point this month. So for listeners who are interested to hear more from Frank, and you want to hear Adam and James and their awesome jokes that they always tell and make fun of each other and all that good stuff, make sure that you tune into the Vets on Radio show, which will be coming up sometime this month with Frank. And that your show's Wednesday, correct? Wednesday, 9 to 11 Mountain Standard Time. So make sure you guys check that out because Frank will be back. Frank, if we're running out of time, so if you had, in like 2 or 3 sentences, something that you could say to voters, not just in Arizona, but nationally, that you could say to voters about why it's so crucial, especially with our upcoming elections this year, what would it be?
Freedom and the American way of life are at stake. And we have to have, as much as we'd like to see Obama gone, maybe Republican control of the Senate, which would mean that Harry Reid would be out, and it wouldn't be able to stop all good legislation coming out of the House, so that it's not even debated, much less voted on there, and Obama's not put to the test of whether he would sign or veto legislation. But freedom is truly at stake, and if we're stuck with this president for the next 2 years, the only hope really is to elect strong, principled, conservative Republican governors who protect the rights of their states and their citizens as a bulwark against Obama, the Obamanization of Arizona, as I put it, and who will stand tall for the cause of freedom and liberty and protect the rights of their constituents, the citizens of that state.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Frank.
Thank
you for coming on the show. I really appreciate
Adam,
it.
thank you.
Get out and vote, because the enemy damn sure is. As they've been shown in the last several years, the enemy's getting out and voting, so we better too. Just get out and vote. Do your homework on your candidates. Find out what they're really about. Do they have a lifetime of service? Do they take their oath seriously, or are they just another part of that big government that we just can't seem to get rid of? Get out and vote, please. Next week, we're going to be talking, we're going to take it into the shooting direction. We're going to be talking about dry practice, why it's so crucial that you do it so that you can become a better shooter. Make sure you go on our Arms Room page, Facebook page, and check out the cool pictures of Frank shooting. He really does put his money where his mouth is when he says he is a strong supporter
great mentor
of the Second Amendment. Until then, stay aware, stay safe, train hard. You've been listening to the Arms Room.
So gallantly streaming, get the rocket train, the bomb busting in air, gate moved through the night, Because we are the brave. Yes, we are the brave. We'll fight you in name, the name of the brave. We are the U.S. of A. For those unaware, that flag is still there. It's our future to save. Stand of the brave, the U.S. of A. Oh, say, just that star.